All right, everybody, I think we should get underway. It wasn't too many town meetings ago, I recall, that we got out of here in 28 minutes. My guess is that that might not happen tonight, but we'll see. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Democracy. This is the real thing, and we should be damn proud of what we're all doing here tonight. My name is John Miller. I'm the town moderator, and if you did not attend last October's town meeting, electronic voting and the white clicker you have been issued might be new to you. More on that in a few minutes, but first, please rise if you are able for the Pledge of Allegiance. There's a flag on the stage and also in the rafters. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As is our tradition, let's take a few moments of silence for a purpose that is meaningful to you. Thank you. It is customary that we find a talented Mashpee resident to inspire us at the beginning of these meetings. Tonight, I'm delighted to introduce Charlie Jenkins. Not only is Charlie about to graduate, but she is also her class's valedictorian, and something on an expert, we're told, on collaboration and working together to achieve a better result, which is our collective goal at this meeting, after all. Charlie Jenkins.
Good evening, everyone. As I look around, I'm filled with such gratitude for the opportunity to witness the incredible level of community involvement within this room. After all, discussions and actions at the local level are the most productive forces of change, so I thank you all for being here. As I look back at my time at Mashpee, I can always recall being on some sort of team, whether it be a rec soccer team, or a volunteer-based team like Girl Scouts. My mom always encouraged me to enter spaces that breed connection and collaboration. In return, I was provided with immense support and amplification of my own passions, a vast well of knowledge on different perspectives, culture, ideas, and most importantly, but often looked over, lots of laughter. Mashpee is incredible for that because we have such an inclusive and connected, yet diverse community. I've had incredible opportunities to branch out and connect with a wide range of members in our community. For example, a luncheon with the men's club or coaching the same recreation soccer program I was a part of when I was young. Getting involved with the community allows you to connect with the members of the town that you don't get to see on a regular basis, which is expansive to one's perspective and enriches aspects of one life that isn't expected. I will see the children I coached in public or when I visit them at school for other volunteer projects and see their faces light up. I remember the feeling they all had when they see a friendly face. I also remember every one of my mentors, coaches, and troop leaders, starting from kindergarten, all who were volunteers from this community and probably in this room right now. We all shape each other's lives as we connect, teaching each other new skills, providing a platform for our voices to be heard, and for simply the wonders of life to be enjoyed. It is the foundation to a good quality of life. It is what makes us human. And as I move on to the next part of my life, pursuing higher education, I find myself feeling incredibly nostalgic about the feeling of community throughout my time at Mashpee. But I also try to remind myself that it's not a nostalgic feeling that resides in the memory of playing co-ed soccer or the bridging ceremonies with my old Girl Scout troop. Instead, my community transforms as it's taken with me throughout life. So I encourage you to reflect on the connections you hold with those around you, prioritize the impact you make, and always be willing to get involved in a new way. You never know what it will teach you or who your actions have an impact on. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you continue to welcome youth voices into these influential decision-making spaces. There are so many more of us with bigger passions and louder voices than just me. Thank you.
The epistle according to Charlie. Thank you very much. An inspiration to us all, and contrary to some popular opinion, the future of America is favorable. Next, I'd like to call on the chair of our select board, John Cotton.
Good evening, everybody. So Pat Costello, right here, has provided over 3 decades of legal service to the town of Mashpee. It's just an amazing thing, and it's behind the scenes. You're not aware of it, but there's a lot of legal advice that goes on day to day to manage this town. So Pat should be commended for that. But this proclamation right here is today is Pat Costello Day. So I'd like to present this to Pat Costello.
Thank you. Very nice. Beautiful. Very nice. Thank you.
Congratulations. I'd also like to ask the town manager, Rodney Collins, to come up and say a few additional comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a plaque that I will read before all of you. Patrick J. Costello, Mashpee General Town Council. The town of Mashpee extends its grateful appreciation for your 30 years of dedicated and professional service. Your trusted counsel and advice have provided the town with competent and effective guidance through the interpretation and application of various bylaws and general laws. The town wishes you the best, health and happiness in retirement, and thanks for your commitment. Pat Costello officially retires this year, July 1st, 2024. In gratitude, please give him one more round of applause.
Thank you, John and Rodney and Pat. There seemed to be something magical about 29 or 30 years in Mashpee. My predecessor, Jerry Carter, was the town moderator for 29 years, I believe. Debbie Kay, our town clerk, has been a town employee here for 29 or 30 years, give or take. Pat Costello has been doing the lawyering bit for 29 years. Patty DeBoer, our superintendent of schools, actually tonight, if I'm not mistaken, will be her last town meeting in that official capacity, but Patty's been in the Mashpee school system for 29 or 30 years too. So congratulations to all the 3 decaders. Should I collapse before your very eyes, we do have a deputy moderator by the name of Ed Gilday, who is somewhere here. Ed, are you here? Somewhere? Wave? Maybe not. I saw him earlier. But I don't plan on passing out, so don't worry. So a few housekeeping matters, and then we'll get on with things. If you're a Mashpee voter, you have in your possession a blue and white clicker. You see 2 options on it, yes or no. How many here tonight did not attend a previous town meeting where these are used? If you could raise your hand. Quite a few. So we're going to run a couple of little sample questions as we did last time. So electronic voting at town meeting has become a common practice across the state and here on the Cape. It's quicker and more accurate than hand counts. It's also secure. There is no connection to the internet or the cloud. No record is kept of who voted for what. And it's also private. The person sitting next to you does not know how you voted one way or the other, just like when you go to the polls. So, how about a couple of practice rounds? bugs. You'll see the question or motion on the screen, and the way it works is when that's presented after the motion is read, I will say vote now, and you will proceed to press yes or no. You have 20 seconds to do that, and within that 20 seconds, you can change your vote by toggling to the alternate option. It's just that make sure that the last time you voted within that 20 seconds is the one that you want to count, because if you don't, it'll record the last vote you made within the 20 seconds. If you wish to abstain, simply do not press any button. Ready? Question 1, will the Bruins prevail over the Panthers in tonight's opening game of round 2 of the playoffs? Vote now. You can also see the voting increment on the bottom line if you look at the screen. We should start a poll on the outcome of this vote. I think it follows that the quicker within the 20 seconds you press one of those two buttons, the quicker we get the result. This is merely an opinion question. There's no prerequisite for that, so. Well, I guess we have the answer. Congratulations to the optimists. You want one more? One more? Okay. Have you ever lied about your birthday at a restaurant to get a free dessert? Vote now. Well, very impressive result. Congratulations to the honest people here. As for the other 51 of you, we know all the popular restaurants and who runs them. By the way, in the case of a two-thirds vote, somebody asked that question, or other quantum vote like 9/10, which we have one of this evening, the system will calculate the math and it will show on the screen what the result is, whether that motion passed or failed. You may have noticed that some folks tonight are holding a colored card. These are issued to Mashpee property owners and taxpayers who are not registered voters in Mashpee. They do have the right to speak when recognized by the moderator, or they may be town department heads who are not residents but are authorized to speak to an article if asked. Speakers who are voters may be asked to hold up or display your clicker just for verification, or wear it around your neck with the lanyard if you prefer. When you leave tonight, exit through the main doors and make certain that your clicker is collected. What is known about each numbered clicker is who it is assigned to in case follow-up is necessary. They're expensive. Finally, I call your attention to the partial listing of town meeting rules in the back of your blue books. Questions and respectful discussion are encouraged. Brevity is a virtue, and we encourage adhering to the 4 C's of our town meetings. Be concise, be civil, be constructive, and be courteous. Onward we go with the special town meeting. In the name of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, you are hereby directed to notify and summons inhabitants of the town who are qualified to vote in the elections to meet at the Mashpee High School on Monday, the 6th day of May, 2024, for the following purposes: to act on the articles contained in the following warrant. Long pause waiting for Mr. Cotton.
Ready? Motion be made for, obviously. Motion, I move that the town moderator, sorry, Mr. Moderator, thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move that the town vote to dispense with the reading of the special town meeting warrant articles.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We don't have to use the clickers every time. When I think a voice vote will get the job done more quickly, we'll use that. So all those in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. Article number 1, Mr. Cotton.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move the town vote to appropriate and transfer the sum of $864.05 from the revenue available for appropriation to pay the previous fiscal year's unpaid bill as follows.
I'll second.
Algonquin Acquisition Company, LLC, Boston Globe Media Partners, LLC, of $864.05.
Motions to pay bills from a prior fiscal year require a 9/10 vote, which is what we would be seeking here. It's a yes or no vote. Vote now. And based on the outcome, 358 to 19, total of 377, that motion carries. Congratulations, we're underway. Article number 2, Mr. O'Hara.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. It's always a pleasure. Motion to be made. I move the town vote to approve Article 2 as printed in the warrant with the exception of the phrase of take any other action related thereto.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. A recommendation from the Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Finance Committee recommends approval of Article 2 by a vote of 7-0.
Any discussion? Hearing none, vote now. And the motion carries 381 to 13. It appears we have about 400 voters here tonight, if everybody is voting. Thank you for coming. Article number 3, Ms. Sherman.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move the town vote to approve Article 3 as printed in the warrant, with the exception of the phrase, or take any other action relating thereto.
Second.
Recommendation from the Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Finance Committee recommends approval of Article 3 by a vote of 7-0.
I'm happy to ask for the Select Board's recommendation if you would prefer. It's probably a good practice. Select Board recommendation on Article 3?
Is 4-0.
In favor. Discussion. All those in favor of the motion for Article 3, proceed to vote now, or to vote no, as you see fit. Oh my God. 348 to 19, the motion carries. Thank you very much. I'll never live this one down. The town clerk just politely advised me that her tenure with the town is not 29 or 30 years. You want to guess? It's 38. She's been here longer than my age. Moving on to Article number 4, Mr. Whedon.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move the town vote to approve Article 4 as printed in the warrant, with the exception of the phrase "or take any other action relating thereto."
Second.
Select Board recommendation.
Recommends approval of Article 4 by a vote of 4-0.
Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Finance Committee recommends approval of Article 4 by a vote of 6-0.
This involves borrowing, so it does require a two-thirds vote. Please vote now. And that motion passed 400 to 24. I apologize for neglecting to invite any discussion. Not that it would matter at this point, but did anybody have any discussion? Hearing none, I'll try to avoid that in the future. My apologies. Article number 5, Ms. Wyman-Colombo.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move the town vote to approve Article 5 as printed in the warrant, with the exception of the phrase "or take any other action relating thereto."
Second.
Select Board recommendation.
5-0.
Recommending approval. Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Finance Committee recommends approval of Article 5 by a vote of 6-0.
Thank you. Any discussion on Article 5? Hearing none, please vote now. And the motion carries 377 to 23. You can also see that a vote has passed if the bar across the top of the screen turns green. One of the words up there is passed or not passed. If it's green, it passed. Article number 6, Mr. Cotton.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move the town vote to approve Article 6 as printed in the warrant, with the exception of the phrase "or take any other action relating thereto."
Second.
Select Board recommendation.
Select Board recommends approval of Article 6 by a vote of 4-0.
Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Finance Committee recommends approval of Article 6 by a vote of 7-0.
Any discussion on Article 6? Hearing none, all those in favor, all those wishing to vote, vote now. And that motion carries 365 to 15. Let's try a voice vote in the interest of time on this next article, number 7, Mr. O'Hara.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move the town vote to approve Article 7 as printed in the warrant, with the exception of, I move the town vote and approve Article 7 as printed in the warrant, with the exception of the phrase "and take any other action related thereto."
Second.
Select Board recommendation.
Select Board recommends approval of Article 7 by a vote of 4-0.
And Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Finance Committee recommends approval of Article 7 by a vote of 7-0.
Any discussion? Looking for a unanimous voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Article number 8, Ms. Sherman.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move the town vote to approve Article 8 as printed in the warrant with the exception of the phrase "or take any other action related thereto."
Second.
Board recommends Article 8 by 4-0.
And Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Finance Committee recommends approval of Article 8 by a vote of 6-1.
Any discussion on Article 8? Want to try a voice vote? Any discussion? All those in favor of Article 8 say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. It's unanimous. Article number 9, Mr. Whedon.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move that the town vote to approve Article 9 as printed in the warrant with the exception of the phrase "or take any other action relating thereto." The Select Board recommends approval of Article 9 by a vote of 5-0.
Second.
And Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Finance Committee recommends approval of Article 9 by a vote of 6-0.
Any discussion on Article 9? Got your clickers ready. And vote now. Article 9 carries 397 to 27. Article number 10, which requires a 2/3 vote. Ms. Wyman-Colombo.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move that the town vote to approve Article 10 as printed in the warrant with the exceptions of replacing the phrase "a sum of money" with the phrase "the sum of $2,821,000" and deleting the phrase "or take any other action relating thereto."
Second.
Select Board recommendation.
Recommends approval of Article 10 by a vote of 3-1.
Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Finance Committee does not recommend approval of Article 10 by a vote of 7-0.
Do we have discussion? Yes, ma'am.
Well, is there an on button? You're good now. Now it's good. On? On?
You're good.
Hi, Arden Russell, Sturgis Lane. I'm the chair of the Community Preservation Committee. I just want to explain the process to the voters. Originally, the dollar amount was not printed in the warrant because we did not yet have an appraisal returned to us in time for the printing of the warrant. Once that appraisal came in, we have been negotiating with the owners, and we now have a dollar amount in there. This is a really important purchase for the town. It's 17 acres on Mashpee-Wakeby Pond on a degraded water body. This is a clean water initiative, and I urge voters to support purchase of open space and removing potential development. And that's what, I hope you vote for the article. Thank you.
Thank you.
The dollar amount was stated in the article, $2,821,000.
Next speaker.
Hi, good evening. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Susan Dangle, Cotuit Road. I'm also the president of Save Mashpee-Wakeby Pond Alliance, and I'm actually shocked that the Finance Committee reversed their 7-0 approval of this article.
Excuse me, we did not vote originally to approve it. We made no recommendation at that time, waiting for tonight to make our recommendation.
I apologize for that, but still, as we all probably know, the ponds of our town are in very bad shape. Am I allowed to give a visual, Mr. Moderator?
By what means would you do that?
A little tiny sign, picture, a photo.
Tiny signs, go for it.
I don't know if you can see it. Now, this is Mashpee Wakeby Pond last summer. The entire pond was this color. We are not in any of the clean water plans for sewering. We have only a certain number of things at our disposal right now. That has to do with stormwater management, fertilizer management, and we are awaiting a diagnostic study to see if there are anything else we can do. But one of the things we did as our alliance formed 3 years ago was put protecting undeveloped land as one of our critical charter initiatives. This is 17 acres, and the money is what it is appraised at, and the people who are wanting to sell this want to conserve the land. They're not going to deal unless we have a deal, unless we have money confirmed, and it says so in the warrant that this would not increase the tax base or the tax burden on the town because this is community preservation funds already in hand. So I urge the town voters to say yes. Thank you.
Any further discussion on Article 10? Hearing none, get out your clickers and vote. Hold on, one more speaker.
Hello, I'm new to Mashpee, but could the Finance Committee explain maybe?
Could you give your name and address?
Linda Monchick, 7 Stony Brook Drive. Could the Finance Committee maybe give, according to the 4 Cs, the reason they are not supporting this apparently beneficial to the whole area motion?
I recognize the Finance Committee.
The Finance Committee just found out basically the dollar amount tonight's meeting. We have not had a chance to vet it, and it is our understanding they're still in the midst of negotiating the actual sale price. So we were not in favor of recommending 2.8 as a set amount.
Any further discussion on Article 10? Seeing or hearing none, get your clickers out and vote now. This is a 2/3 vote, and it has passed. Just a postscript, if I may, to the gentleman that shouted out, vote yes. We don't encourage that type of behavior. Thank you in the future. The town clerk, by the way, tells us officially there are 464 voters here tonight, so thank you for the turnout. That concludes all of the articles in tonight's special town meeting. I would entertain a motion to adjourn that meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? We'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay? It's unanimous. All right, moving on to the annual town meeting. Greetings. In the name of the Commonwealth, you are hereby directed to notify and summon inhabitants of the town of Mashpee who are qualified to vote in the elections to meet at the Mashpee High School the 6th day of May 2024 at 7 p.m. or so for the following purposes: to act on the articles in the warrant. Mr. Cotton.
I move the town vote to dispense with the reading of the annual town meeting warrant articles.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion carries. Article number 1, Mr. O'Hara.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move that the town vote to approve Article 1 as printed in the warrant, with the exception of the phrase, "take any other action related thereto."
Second.
Select Board recommendation.
The Select Board recommends approval of Article 1 by a vote of 4-0.
And Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Finance Committee recommends approval of Article 1 by a vote of 7-0.
Let's try voice vote on this. All those, any discussion, first of all? All those in favor of Article 1 say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Article number 2, Ms. Sherman.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move the town vote to fix the salaries of the elected officers as specified under the columns entitled Town Manager's Recommendation in line item 2 and 22 of the omnibus budget as described to the voters at the town meeting, and further the town defray the expenses for the ensuing fiscal year by appropriations. Those amounts shown under columns entitled Town Manager's Recommendation, and that to fund said appropriation, the town raise and appropriate $68,818,707, and further appropriate and transfer from the ambulance receipts reserved for appropriation account $450,000 to line item 40, $50,000 to line item 41, appropriate and transfer from the shellfish receipts reserved for appropriation account $30,000 to line item 32, appropriate and transfer from the Waterways Improvement Fund $32,000 to the line item 31, appropriate and transfer from the cemetery receipts reserved for appropriation account $10,000 to line item 53, appropriate and transfer from street betterment receipts reserved for appropriation account $345,000 to line item 70, $49,025 to line item 72, and $132,173 to line item 74. Appropriate and transfer from the septic betterment receipts reserved for appropriation account $18,385 to line item 70, $15,350 to line item 55, and to appropriate and transfer from the Community Preservation Act Fund $235,000 to line item 70, and $6,850 to line item 72, and appropriate and transfer from revenue available for appropriation $2,100,000 to line item 78.
Second.
Select
Board.
Select Board recommends approval of Article 2 by a vote of 5-0.
And Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Finance Committee recommends approval of Article 2 by a vote of 6-0.
Please don't ask to have that motion repeated. I know it's hard to read at a distance, but the entire motion is on display. Historically, it's not been unheard of that the moderator reads each line item on these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages of the operating budget. This moderator chooses not to do that, but you can still have your say. So what I would ask everyone to do is start on page, I don't have the page numbers here. The 20, is it? Starts with, yeah, it is page 20. So on that first page, if anybody wants to hold a line item for discussion, just speak out to hold line number, whatever it is. On those lines on that page, 1 through 18. Which line? Line 2? Anything else? My assumption is when somebody asks for it to be held, that when we come back to talk about that item, that whoever asked for that would be the person speaking to it. Is that agreeable? Okay, not that others couldn't too. Anything else on lines 1 through 18? Page 21, lines 19 through 36. Which line? 19? Any other lines? Next page, 22, items lines 37 through 50. Which line? $45. Anything else? Page 23, lines 51 through 66. Page 24, lines 67 through 81. All right, so we'll come back to line 2 on page 20, salary account for the Select Board.
Hi, I'm Mary Ann Murphy, 53 Tracy Lane, and this is actually an amendment to line sort of 1.5, which is, I propose an amendment to change the category title, Select Men, to Select Board, which we voted on 3 years ago now, and it's still appearing incorrect in the program.
We could actually make that amendment. Would you like to do that? Do we have a second to that motion for an amendment?
Second.
Discussion on the amendment.
Words matter. And we've already voted, to make this change, so.
Voice vote. All those in favor of changing the nomenclature to Select Board, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. Good catch. Finally, we're in the 21st century. Page 21, line item 19.
Yes, Alexander Watt, Pimlico Pond Road. My question is, later on in the warrant, there's an article that seeks to fund a new position in the information technology. And I'm wondering if that's the reason for the discrepancy between the department request and FinCom and town manager recommendations.
Do we have an answer?
The short answer is yes. There was a request initially. When a new position is created, it is generally a standalone article. Even though this indicates that there's a new position, essentially what we would be doing, or what you would be approving if you did vote in the affirmative, is taking an old position and turning it into a new position. The person who used to take care of IT work at the PD retired, and instead of replacing that individual, this article would create a new IT position. The person, instead of reporting to the PD, would report to IT, and finally, that person would be shared between the PD and the FD, so they would just have to walk back and forth during the course of the day to take care of all of the IT issues, and quite frankly, that caseload has risen in the last few years.
Okay, so the amount that we're voting on for this line item here would be increased by the article next, right?
If you approve the subsequent article, yes.
Correct, okay.
Yes.
I think I have the next objection, and I'd speak to that as well.
You're referring to line 45?
Correct, yes. Now, I think on line 45, the same question applies. I think there's an article later on in the warrant that seeks to add a position to DPW, if I'm correct.
You are.
I don't see the reduction, though, in Finance Committee recommendation or Town Manager recommendation.
I'm going to defer to the DPW Director, just in case I am specifically missing something, because I'm not exactly sure what number you're referring to.
Catherine Laurent, DPW Director. So the line item 45 does not include the new position. That was the directive from the town manager when we submitted our budget to submit a separate article for a new position. So the line item 45 is our existing staff, and the article later on the warrant is for a new position. That salary would be added to this line item 45 if approved.
I think that explains it. I just wonder why there are different procedures when one asks for the department request, whether that should be the same in information technology as it is for Department of Public Works.
Not hearing an answer to that, does anybody else want to add something to an item not already on hold? All right, seeing no further discussion, the vote will come on the article as amended to change the select board reference. And get your clickers out and vote now. I see that. Good point. Sorry about that. And Article number 3 is passed, 274 to 25. Article 2, what did I say? Okay, Article 2 passes 274 to 25. Sorry about that. Now, Article 3. Mr. Whedon.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move the town vote to appropriate and transfer the sum of $4,526,634 as follows: $2,932,634 from the Capital Stabilization Fund, $475,000 from ambulance receipts reserved for appropriation account, $19,000 Department of Environmental Protection DEP grant, $100,000 from the Mashpee Cable and Advanced Technology account, and $1 million from revenue available for appropriation to various departmental capital accounts, as specified in the charts accompanying this article.
Second.
The Select Board recommends approval of Article 3 by a vote of 5-0.
And Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Finance Committee recommends approval of Article number 3 by a vote of 6-0.
Any discussion on Article 3? This does require a 2/3 vote, so we'll use the clickers. Vote now. Article 3 passes by a two-thirds vote, 368 to 23. Article number 4, Ms. Wyman Colombo.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $96,100,000 to fund implementation and construction of Phase 2 of the town's comprehensive nitrogen and wastewater management, treatment, and disposal improvement plans, including expansion of the water resource recovery facility adjacent to the town's solid waste transfer station, sewer mains, pump stations, and related sewer collection system improvements, and costs relating to the acquisition of necessary easements and other interests in real property, conveying the right to locate, relocate, erect, construct, reconstruct, install, operate, maintain, patrol, inspect, repair, replace, alter, change the location of, extend or remove piping, lift stations, low-pressure sewers, generators, odor controls, electrical and other necessary equipment and apparatus, including all costs incidental or related thereto, and including without limitation all costs thereof as defined in Section 1 of Chapter 29C of the General Laws, the project, that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the Select Board, is authorized to borrow such amount and issue bonds or notes, therefore, under Chapter 44 of the General Laws and/or Chapter 29C of the General Laws. And further, that the treasurer, with the approval of the Select Board, is authorized to borrow all or a portion of such amount from the Massachusetts Clean Water Trust, the trust, and in connection therewith, to enter into a financing agreement and/or security agreement with the trust, and otherwise to contract with the trust and the Department of Environmental Protection, DEP, with respect to such loan and for any federal or state aid available for the project or for the financing thereof, and that the Select Board is authorized to enter into a project regulatory agreement with the DEP to expend all funds available for the project and to take any other action necessary to carry out the project, provided that any grant, state or federal aid, or other funds received for the project shall be used to offset the total appropriation authorized herein. And provided further that this appropriation and debt authorization shall be contingent upon passage of a Proposition 2.5 debt exclusion ballot question pursuant to General Law, Chapter 59, Section 21C.
Second. The Select Board recommends approval of Article 4 by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you. Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Finance Committee recommends approval of Article 4 by a vote of 6-0.
Any discussion on Article 4?
Yes, Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Cotton.
John Cotton, 30 Knobsker Road. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Mashpee's two bays are in bad shape. The primary cause of bad water quality is excess nitrogen from septic systems. We have known this for many years, and we also know that expanding sewers are the best and most reliable way to restore water quality. We are here tonight to ask your support for the next step in the town's efforts to bring our waters back. 3 years ago, at this very town meeting, we unanimously approved this initial Phase 1 of our wastewater plan. The town plan has been in existence since 2015, and we are following the general steps it laid out. We are building in phases to make sure each step we make makes sense and to spread out the costs. You might have heard we do not have a plan, but we do, and it is being put into action. All committees, boards, and commissions in Mashpee are working together to assure we are doing the right thing. Restoring the waters of Pompanesett and Wacoit Bays is not only legally required, it is the right thing to do. The plan was designed to be adaptive, done in stages, and to adjust to changes in our water quality. In the 9 years since the plan was approved by the town of Mashpee and the state of Massachusetts, our waters have gotten worse than many have expected. Phase 1 of this project is underway, and with tonight's affirmative vote, Phase 2 will finally be able to make a significant dent in the nitrogen removal. Taken together, completions of Phase 1 and 2 of the Clean Water Plan will result in 42% reduction of nitrogen in the Pompanesett Bay watershed. So in this watershed, we will be about halfway toward meeting our goal to restore Pompanesett Bay. Phases 1 and 2 of the sewer give the town a state-of-the-art treatment plant with the capacity to sewer as many as 3,000 homes. The 2 phases combined build the plant and connect 1,727 homes. With this affirmative vote tonight, we will have, we can surely achieve 0% financing, 28.3% loan forgiveness, cost offsets from the whiff of 2% property tax that began back in 2020, rooms tax of 6% tax paid on overnight rentals paid to visitors to our community and not paid by property taxpayers. The town was able to cover 100% of the cost of Phase 1 without an increase to property taxes. Relying on those same resources just listed, Phase 2 will cost Mashpee residents approximately $75 per year for the average home valued at $772,000. That is what we are asking for tonight. Loan payments are not due until Phase 2 is completed. So that $75 average home year tax increase won't begin until 2029. I'm a banker, and let me tell you one thing I know about loans. No interest cost, for which I only pay back 71.7 cents on every dollar borrowed, is a great deal. The town's measured approach to this project and to the phasing allows costs to be broken into manageable chunks, with each new phase put before the voters for approval. This process makes sense, and every step of the way, we will come before you with full cost proposals for the next phase and how we plan to pay for it. It costs money to develop accurate engineering plans sufficient to estimate construction costs. Spending tens of millions of dollars for design and cost estimates for future phases that you are not planning to build in the near term is costly and a waste of money. The calls for total future cost estimates may sound good, but it sheds no real light on any near-term costs. We have a bad water quality problem. We know sewers are the best solution. We have a plan to do the right thing with a relative cost. Phase 2, as designed, makes sense. And above all, it is necessary for the next step of Mashpee. I urge you to vote yes at tonight and also on question 1 on the ballot. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Any further discussion on Article 4?
Michael Perkins, 94 Palmer Road. My question has to do with the timing. Phase 2, Mr. Cotton, you indicated the 42% benefit we'll get once Phase 2 is up and operational. I believe is that how you stated it.
Correct.
So my understanding is at that point, we're going to stop all work and make those assessments to determine that the 42% is realized. How long of a period will that take once we're up and operational?
I'm not sure. You're talking about we're going to stop work.
You said we're going to achieve 42% reduction in our contaminants in the water. How long will it take to verify we've gotten to the 42%? Because my understanding was phase 3 wouldn't be initiated until we knew we were on track to deliver the 42.
Yeah, it's an ongoing, it's not an instantaneous fix. I'm not an engineer and, biologist. This process is a long, all I can tell you is we can be guaranteed to look at this step by step, and I think that's what I try to get across here. We're not looking at the complete, the entire town right now, because what we know is right now is phase 1 is in the works, phase 2 is we're hoping to pass tonight, and then we will assess the situation at that time. We're not even talking about this completion until 2029. That's 5 years from now. So at that point, we will assess and decide. I mean, there's plenty of committees in town, that are looking at what is the next step. What is phase 3? I don't know. We don't know at this time, but we'll assess, the water quality and, in cost-effective manner, and what's the best process for the next step. Does that make sense?
Sort of. I would hope with an undertaking this large that we would have, the right engineering resources here maybe, who could comment and elaborate on my question, if you can't answer it.
Yeah, it's gotta
Mr.
be an
Chair.
engineer.
I feel like it's a difficult question to answer because there's a lot of variables. I think to gauge your success on 42% cleaning of the waters, there's if we continue to build and there's not kind of smaller treatment plant facilities, then are you effectively meeting that goal? Are you considering future development? And so, this is specifically, I think, targeted phases 1 and 2 address Papaneset watershed. We still have Walk White watershed to address. And so, there's a lot of factors to that. And it's fluid. There's things that's always changing. Future development, how is that done? Is there adequate infrastructure put in place commensurate of the future build-out? Those factors are not, we don't know that information at this time.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Mary Adams Oleksak, 18 Capstan Circle. I was part of the group of citizens that started Mashpee Clean Waters that tried to begin to catalyze this conversation a number of years ago. And I don't speak as a scientist, but I can tell you that we have held a number of forums on Zoom during COVID, and we had a number of scientists talk to us about how this process proceeds. And as many of you know, we have had an annual testing program. It's a joint project between the town, the tribe, and UMass Dartmouth. And so we have very good data for every summer, both watersheds, and track it. And so that will continue, I imagine, until we, hopefully someday can stop. But we will be able to see the trend. And what we were told, going back to phase 1, is that as you begin to remove nitrogen, nature is very resilient. And between shellfish, and if we can get the native flora and fauna to come back, then that will help us in this process. Mashpee was the first town in the nation to get approval to use shellfish as part of the healing process. Right now, shellfish can't live in parts of the Mashpee River because the conditions are so bad. But this is going to be a combination of, we have to have the sewers, but then as we begin to get more and more nitrogen out, we're going to see the trends, and that's why it's an adaptive process, why it was originally supposed to be 5 phases, and we don't know that we'll need to do all 5. But you can't, as Chairman Cotton explained, it would be foolish for us to try and plan the entire process without learning from the data every year and that testing process will continue. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. McKelvey.
Possible to hear from our wastewater superintendent on this issue?
Is it possible to hear from our wastewater superintendent, is the question.
if I could just say one thing, Mr. Moderator, before
Yes, Mr. Collins.
speaks. I just want to assure the gentleman that spoke, we're going to look at everything in terms of the data, fertilization, the stormwater, DNR program, the sewering. We're going to listen to GHD. We're going to listen to our engineering consultant, UMass Dartmouth, the wastewater superintendent who's about to speak. We're going to listen to all of them, that I assure you, before any decision is made in terms of staff recommendation to the policymakers.
Apparently it is possible.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Jared Meter, wastewater superintendent, town of Mashpee. To answer your question about are we going to continue testing and monitoring? Yes, we're always testing and monitoring. We have monitoring wells in the ground. We'll continue to monitor those at least quarterly as we move forward. The numbers we have are based off of projections. It takes years to see the results if you're at the head of the source to go for the water to get to the water bodies. We heard a talk the other night from a UMass professor who explained, in some cases, it's half a foot a day that water moves underground. So again, it could take years depending how far it's traveling. The one thing we can tell you is that when you do sewer, you're removing that nitrogen. It's going to a facility that is being treated to a certain level far greater than what you get in a Title V or, in some cases, most IAs. There are some good ones out there. Wakeby, Mashpee, or the Wakeby watershed is where we're Coit. See, I always get them confused. I'm still learning. I'm from the vineyard, by the way. So I'm learning my Cape Cod slowly. So we're focusing over there right now. No definite plans have been laid out. We're trying to get phase 2 off the ground. But that's the area to look at. But even if we do go to another direction, we always continue to monitor and see how we do. Like a speaker said earlier, the intent is to give Mother Nature that hand to stand up on her own. She's in such bad health right now. We're just trying to take care of her, and then hopefully, far before the 20-year plan is done, is my hope, she'll get up and say, okay, I got this from here on out. And then all the shellfish promulgation, everything will actually do its job, but it won't do its job until we get rid of the source of the pollution. Hope that answers.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this article? Hearing none, let's move to the vote. This does require 2/3 vote, so get your clickers out and vote now. The article passes. 358 to 27, the required 2/3 vote. History has been made tonight. Article number 5, Mr. Cotton.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move that the town will vote to repurpose a portion of the appropriation and borrowing authorization for capital improvements approved under Article 11 at the May 1st, 2023 annual town meeting and excluded from the limitation of the Proposition 2.5 General Law, Chapter 59, Section 21C at the May 6, 2023 annual town election to the following purposes as recommended by the Capital Improvement Program, CIP, Committee, including all costs incidental or related thereto, and to authorize the treasurer with the approval of the Select Board to issue bonds and notes for such purposes as follows. DPW masonry wall restoration, $80,000. Police Station Design and Engineering, $2,700,000 for a total of $2,780,000.
Second. The Select Board recommends approval of Article 5 by a 4-0 vote.
Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Finance Committee recommends approval of Article 5 by a vote of 6-0.
Discussion on Article 5.
Don Maris, 9 Hitcher Lane. I have a question. I want a clarification. Is this a design of a new building or a renovation? Because when I read the explanation printed in the warrant by the FinCom, it mentions renovation. But when I attended a CIP meeting, it sounded to me like it was designing a new building. So is it a renovation that we're approving, or is it a new building? Because they're two different things.
The DPW has answers to everything, almost.
Catherine Laurent, DPW Director. So the town did do a feasibility study to look at renovation versus a new building, and the decision was made to move forward with a new building. So this would fund design for a new building.
Is that what FinCom approved, or did they approve a renovation?
The Finance Committee recommends approval of the engineering design of whatever the project entails. And if the DPW has decided the design is to reconstruct as opposed to renovate, that's what the Finance Committee has recommended.
Yeah. It was presented as a new building.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
Further discussion on Article 5. Hearing none, this requires a 2/3 vote. Please vote now. And the motion carries 252 to 90. Article 6, Mr. O'Hara.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move the town vote to authorize, reauthorize, and extend for an additional 3 years and appropriation and transfer of the sum of $350,000 for the capital stabilization fund for the purpose of the resurfacing of the MMHS parking lot. Recommended by the Capital Improvement Program CIP Committee as a previously approved at the, at the May 3rd, 2021 annual town meeting by a vote under Article 3 for the warrant.
Second.
Select Board.
Recommends approval of Article 6 by a 4-0 vote.
And Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Finance Committee recommends approval of Article 6 by a vote of 6-0.
Any discussion on Article 6? This requires a 2/3 vote. Let's try for unanimous. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Carries unanimously. Thank you. Article 7, Ms. Sherman.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move that the town vote to repurpose the sum of $130,000 from the Department of Natural Resources FY 2023 capital account to the Department of Natural Resources FY 2025 capital account as recommended by the Capital Improvement Program, CIP Committee, and approved at the May 2nd, 2022 special town meeting by vote under Article 5 of the warrant.
Second.
Select Board recommends approval of this article, 4 to 0.
And Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Finance Committee recommends approval of Article 7 by a vote of 7-0.
Let's try another voice vote. This is a majority vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Passes unanimously. It passes almost unanimously. Article number 8, Mr. Whedon.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move that the town vote to approve Article 8 as printed in the warrant with the exception of the phrase "or take any other action relating thereto."
Second.
The Select Board recommends approval of Article 8 by a vote of 4-0.
Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Finance Committee recommends approval of Article 8 by a vote of 7-0.
Since we are enjoying voting out loud so much, let's try it again. All those in favor, any discussion, by the way, on Article 8? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Unanimously. Thank you. Article 9, Ms. Wyman Colombo.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move that the town vote to approve Article 9 as printed in the warrant with the exception of the phrase "or take any other action relating thereto."
Second.
The Select Board recommends the approval of Article 9 by a vote of 4 to 0.
Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Finance Committee recommends approval of Article 9 by a vote of 7-0.
Is there any discussion on Article number 9? Let's try voice vote for a majority. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Unanimous. Thank you. Article 10, Mr. Cotton.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move the town vote to approve Article 10 as printed in the warrant with the exception of the phrase "or take any other action relating thereto."
Second.
The Select Board recommends approval of Article 10 by a vote of 4 to 0.
Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Finance Committee recommends approval of Article 10 by a vote of 6-1.
Any discussion on Article 10? Let's try a voice vote again. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. It's unanimous. Article number 11, Mr. O'Hara.
And thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move that the town vote to approve Article 11 as printed in the warrant with the exception of the phrase "or take any other action related thereto."
Second. The Select Board recommends approval of Article 11 by a vote of 4 to 0.
Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Finance Committee recommends approval of Article 11 by a vote of 7-0.
Thank you. Discussion on Article 11. We're getting good at voice votes. So all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. It's unanimous. Article 12, Ms. Sherman.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move that the town vote to approve Article 12 as printed in the warrant with the exception of the phrase "or take any other action relating thereto."
Second. The Select Board recommends approval of Article 12 by a vote of 4 to 0.
Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Finance Committee recommends approval of Article 12 by a vote of 7-0.
Any discussion on Article 12? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no, nay. Unanimous. Article 13, Mr. Whedon.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move that the town vote to approve Article 13 as printed in the warrant with the exception of the phrase "or take any other action relating thereto."
Second.
The Select Board recommends approval of Article 13 by a vote of 4-0.
Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Finance Committee recommends approval of Article 13 by a vote of 7-0.
Any discussion on Article 13? Let's use the clickers on this one. Vote now. Just didn't want you to get out of practice. And Article 13 passes 275 to 30. Article 14, Ms. Wyman Colombo.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move that the town vote to approve Article 14 as printed in the warrant, with the exception of the phrase, "or take any other action relating thereto."
Second.
The Select Board recommends approval of Article 14 by a vote of 4-0.
Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Finance Committee recommends approval of Article 14 by a vote of 6-1.
Discussion on Article 14.
Alexander Watt, Pimlico Pond Road. So my first question is, when it says FinCom, or when FinCom says this will have no impact on the current tax rate, what does FinCom mean by that? Is that, we talking about FY '24 or FY '25?
FY '25.
So we're voting to appropriate more money. Wouldn't it necessarily have an impact on the tax rate?
No, because the way this position is being funded, it is being funded from revenue available for appropriation, quote-unquote, free cash. It's money we already have. So for 2025, there is no impact on the tax rate.
So you don't have to indicate that it's being a transfer from free cash instead of raise and appropriate?
I believe it says so in the article.
It says revenue available for appropriation?
Yes, that's what that is.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion on Article 14? We'll use the clickers on this vote now. Article 14 passes 279 to 31. Article 15, Mr. Cotton.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move the town vote to approve Article 15 as printed in the warrant, with the exception of the phrase, "or take any other action relating thereto."
Second.
The Select Board recommends approval of Article 15 by a vote of 4-0.
Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Finance Committee recommends approval of Article 15 by a vote of 7-0.
Discussion on Article 15. Seeing none, let's use the clickers. Please vote now. Article 15 passes 265 to 25. Thank you. Article 16, Mr. O'Hara.
Again, thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move that the town vote to approve the Article 16 as printed in the warrant, with the exception of the phrase, "or take any other action related thereto."
Second. The Select Board recommends approval of Article 16 by a vote of 4-0.
Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Finance Committee recommends approval of Article 16 by a vote of 7-0.
Any discussion on Article 16? We'll use the clickers. Hearing none, everybody can vote now. Article 16, excuse me, passes 275 to 27. Pardon my hay fever. Article number 17, Ms. Sherman.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move that the town vote to approve Article 17 as printed in the warrant, with the exception of the phrase, "or take any other action relating thereto."
Second.
Select Board approves Article 17 by a 4-0 vote.
Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Finance Committee recommends approval of Article 17 by a vote of 7-0.
Discussion on Article 17. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Joe Crowley from 9 Beacon Court. And this relates to the staffing and also the town meeting. I just wanted to compliment Chief Colleen on how the last town meeting was handled as far as everyone exiting. An officer went and positioned his crews at a block Route 151 and Old Barnstable Road and pulled everyone out of the high school parking lot. People were gone in a heartbeat. So I don't know if that was your idea, Chief, or if that was something that the officer took upon himself, but I hope that can be standard practice for this meeting and everyone going forward. So thank you.
Well, aren't we all grateful for the editorial on behalf of our police department, and thank you very much, even though it's completely out of order relative to the article we're discussing. Any other comment on this discussion, preferably one that's pertinent? Not that that was impertinent. You know what I mean. So. All right, let your clickers out and vote now. Article 17 passes by a vote of 289 to 24. And since the chief has another recruit for the department, there'll now be 2 cruisers at Route 151 at the end of town meeting. Maybe. Article number 18, Mr. Whedon.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $596,056 to provide for road improvement projects in and for the town in accordance with the provisions of Chapter 90 of the Massachusetts General Laws, and to authorize the treasurer, with the approval of the Select Board, to borrow the said sum of $596,056 under and pursuant to the provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Sections 7 and 8, or any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds and notes of the town therefore.
Second.
The Select Board recommends approval of Article 18 by a vote of 4-0.
Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Finance Committee recommends approval of Article number 18 by a vote of 6-0.
Any discussion on Article 18? Requires a 2/3 vote. We'll use the clickers, and you may vote now. Article 18 passes 284 to 9. 2/3 is satisfied. Article number 19, Ms. Wyman-Colombo.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move that the town vote to approve Article 19 as printed in the warrant, with the exception of the phrase, "or take any other action relating thereto."
Second.
The Select Board recommends approval of Article 19 by a vote of 4-0.
Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Finance Committee recommends approval of Article 19 by a vote of 7-0.
Any discussion on Article 19? Hearing none, let's try a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Unanimous. Article 20, Mr. Cotton.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move the town vote to approve Article 20 as printed in the warrant, with the exception of the phrase, "or take any other action relating thereto."
Second.
The Select Board voted in favor of 4-0.
Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Finance Committee recommends approval of Article 20 by a vote of 7-0.
Discussion on Article 20. Let's try a voice vote again. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Unanimous. Article 21, Mr. O'Hara.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move the town vote and approve Article 21 as printed in the warrant, with the exception of the phrase, "or take any other action related thereto."
Second. The Select Board recommends approval of Article 21 by a vote of 4-0.
Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Finance Committee recommends approval of Article 21 by a vote of 7-0.
Discussion on Article 21. Let's vote out loud again. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Unanimous. Article 22, Ms. Sherman.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move the town vote to approve Article 22 as printed in the warrant, with the exception of the phrase "or take any other action relating thereto."
Second.
The Select Board recommends approval of Article 22 by a 4-0 vote.
Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Finance Committee recommends approval of Article 22 by a vote of 7-0.
Discussion on Article 22. Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Unanimous. Article 23, Mr. Whedon.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move the town vote to approve Article 23 as printed in the warrant, with the exception of the phrase, "or take any other action related thereto."
Second.
The Select Board recommends approval of Article 23 by a vote of 4-0.
Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Finance Committee recommends approval of Article 23 by a vote of 7-0.
Discussion on Article 23. Let's use the clickers this time. You may vote now. Article 23 passes 291 to 15. Article 24, Ms. Wyman-Colombo.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move the town vote to approve Article 24 as printed in the warrant, with the exception of the phrase "or take any other action relating thereto."
Second.
The Select Board recommends approval of Article 24 by a vote of 4-0.
Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Finance Committee recommends approval of Article 24 by a vote of 7-0.
Any discussion on Article 24? We'll try voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Unanimous. Article 25. Mr. Cotton.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move the town vote to authorize the Select Board to grant to Eversource Energy its respective successors and assigns a non-exclusive easement conveying the right to locate, relocate, erect, construct, reconstruct, install, operate, maintain, patrol, inspect, repair, replace, alter, change the location of, extend or remove primary wires, transformers, poles, and conduits, together with service conductors and other necessary equipment and apparatus along, upon, under, across, and over a certain parcel of land situated at 380 Asher's Path, Mashpee, as further described and shown on Mashpee Assessor's Map as Map 61 and as Lot 3 on the plan of land recorded at the Barnstable County Registry of Deeds in Plan Book 161, Plan 39, and Plan Book 172, page 87, and to authorize the Select Board to execute all instruments and do all things necessary to carry out the provisions of this article.
Second.
And the Select Board recommends approval of Article 25 by a vote of 5-0.
Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Finance Committee recommends approval of Article 25 by a vote of 6-0.
Discussion on Article 25. Let's try a voice vote again. All those in favor of Article 25, please say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. Unanimous. 2/3 required. Article 26, Mr. O'Hara.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move the town vote to accept the provisions of Chapter 44-53F and a half of the Massachusetts General Laws established by the Department of Wastewater Management and as an enterprise fund effective fiscal year 2026.
Second.
And the Select Board recommends approval of Article 26 by a vote of 4-0.
Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Finance Committee recommends approval of Article 26 by a vote of 7-0.
Any discussion on Article 26? Let's use the clickers on this one. Vote now. Article 26 passes 278 to 18. Thank you. Article 27, Ms. German.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move that the town vote to approve Article 27 as printed in the warrant with the exception of the phrase "or take any other action related thereto."
Second.
The Select Board recommends approval of Article 27 by a vote of 4-0.
And Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Finance Committee recommends approval of Article 27 by a vote of 6-0.
Any discussion on Article 27? Yes, sir.
Nathan Adams of 81 Edgewater Road. This sounds like there was a specific instance that led to this article being proposed. I'm aware that any new construction requires drainage on site so that runoff doesn't go into the neighboring yard or the town's roads. So I'm wondering, is there a specific area or spot that drove this article?
The DPW director is busy tonight.
Popular tonight.
There's multiple.
There isn't, Catherine Laurent, DPW Director, there isn't a specific area, but as we are getting the more intensive rainstorms, we are noticing that we are getting isolated areas of flooding, which the town, we ourselves are not able to accommodate all required improvements. So this will just give us the resources that if an abutter is contributing to a problem, that we can have them contribute to the solution.
The way this article, my objection to this article, is that there's nothing here that gives us specific guidelines as far as how much water and who decides when it is a problem. And so there's only one person to just decide when and how much water is too much. So this almost applies to everyone in town. If your upgrade of the road and your land drains towards the road, well then now you're subject to a $300 fine and it's just up to one person to decide. And then if this is going to be the situation where you're subject to a fine, why is it the town can fine you? But if your downgrade of the road, which I've drove around in the last couple of days, saw a few places in town where the road drains onto private property. I happen to live at a place where it drains into my private property. This is what sparked my interest. So I brought it up to the town several times and was told that it's fine. And I happen to live right on Santua Pond. That road water comes right into my yard, runs across the front yard, washes out along the side of my driveway. It used to flood my basement, and I had to fight tooth and nail to get some attention to that issue. And even to this day, it is still an issue. So I just take strong opposition to where the town can put the onus onto the private citizen, but the citizen can't gain any relief or at $300 an instance from the town. Thanks.
Next speaker.
Hello, thank you. Kate Miley, Blackwatch Way. I'm just curious if this can be amended to include leaf
debris as well as snow, as I live off an area like South Sandwich Road where I see people take snow from their yards, blow it into the road that has been freshly plowed, as well as leaf debris that then gets wet, can cause issues for my fabulous teenage drivers. Just curiosity, that's all.
If you wish to amend the article, we would need to know what the amendment is, if any.
Such power. Oh, I don't know. I'm curious what people would think if you would amend it to not include just water, but leaf and snow.
Not hearing an amendment, we can go to the next speaker, who may have an amendment.
I would like to make an amendment to include leaf and snow.
All right. Don't mean to be a stickler on this, but we need the exact language, preferably in writing. Those are the rules.
I like rules. Noted. I got nothing. I got only a pen.
Next speaker.
Yes, Mr. Moderator, Alexander Watt, Pimlico Pond Road. I agree with the prior gentleman that this seems very overbroad and unnecessary. But that being said, I would move to amend Article 27 and place under Section 150-11 therein the word willfully following the word shall and prior to discharge.
Does everybody see or understand the proposed amendment? Is there a second to that motion? Any discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, we'll vote on the amendment to add the word willfully in the two places designated in Section 150-11. Everybody understand? Okay, let's try a voice vote on that. All those in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Let's try it again. All those in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Sounds to me like the ayes have it. Next speaker.
This is rather vague. What do you mean by discharging water? Does that mean if it rains down on your driveway and goes down into the road? Does that mean if the snow melts on your lawn and it goes onto the road? What does it mean?
Is there an answer to the gentleman's question?
It's just so vague. And then you're going to have police, well, we'll take care of this guy, but he's a friend of mine. I'm not going to do that. We know how that works.
I don't think you're speaking for everyone, sir.
I'm speaking only for myself.
So there obviously will be some discretion that will have to be applied. It is certainly not the intent of the bylaw to go after a property owner who may be discharging a small amount of water. This is really intended for larger properties, larger parking lots, where they do not have adequate stormwater infrastructure on their own property, and that water ends up on the town roads.
But it doesn't say that.
Any further discussion? I guess we're ready to vote on the amended article, number 27. We'll use the clickers for that. And you may vote now. Article 27 fails by a vote of 168 to 105. End of the first period, no score. Article number 28, Mr. Whedon.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move that the town vote to approve Article 28 as printed in the warrant.
Second.
The Select Board recommends approval of Article 28 by a vote of 4-0.
Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Finance Committee recommends approval of Article 28 by a vote of 7-0.
And the Planning Board.
The Planning Board recommends approval of Article 28 by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you. Any discussion on Article 28, which requires a two-thirds vote? Let's try for a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes unanimously. Article 29, Ms. Wyman-Colombo.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move that the town vote to approve Article 29 as printed in the warrant with the exception of the phrase, or take any other action relating thereto.
Second.
The Select Board recommends approval of Article 29 by a vote of 5-0.
Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Finance Committee recommends approval of Article 29 by a vote of 6-0.
Discussion on Article 29. I wasn't sure if he was approaching the mic or approaching his chair, but now we know. He snuck in quietly. All right, let's try voice vote on this one. All those in favor of Article 29 say aye.
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 Opposed say nay. Unanimous. Article number 30, we're almost there. Mr. Cotton.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move the town vote to extend for an additional 3 years the duration of the appropriation approved under Article 20 voted at May 2nd, 2022 special town meeting for Santuit Pond resiliency projects and stormwater improvements within the Santuit Pond watershed.
Second.
The Select Board recommends approval of Article 30 by a vote of 4-0.
Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Finance Committee recommends approval of Article 30 by a vote of 7-0.
Any discussion on Article 30? Let's try voice vote again. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Unanimously passed. Thank you. Article 31, Mr. O'Hara.
Thank you again, Mr. Moderator. I move that the town vote to approve Article 31 as printed in the warrant with the exception and the phrase, or take any other action related thereto.
Second.
Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Finance Committee recommends approval of Article 31 by a vote of 7-0.
And Select Board.
The Select Board recommends approval of Article 31 by a vote of 4-0.
Any discussion on Article 31? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Unanimous. Article number 32. Ms. Sherman.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move that the town vote to approve Article 32 as printed in the warrant with the exception of the phrase, or take any other action relating thereto.
Second. The Select Board recommends approval of Article 32 by a vote of 4-0.
Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Finance Committee recommends approval of Article 32 by a vote of 6-1.
Planning Board, care to weigh in? I guess not. Any discussion on Article 32?
Alexander Watt, Pimlico Pond Road. In my memory, most of these road projects are promoted by petition. The costs for any improvements are assessed to the abutters, and that appears to be what Article 32 is proposing. But I would like the selectmen and FinCom to state why they are in favor of Article 32 and yet opposed to Article 33. I think it's appropriate that we know that reasoning now.
Either board care to respond?
That's a good question.
So,
The question is, in what way do those two articles differ that result in a different recommendation? Is that? Okay.
That's essentially the question, yes.
Right. So Article 33 is actually, a motion will be made to indefinitely postpone. The reason that the Select Board and the Finance Committee voted not to recommend was some issues came up with the cost of the betterment that caused them to want to put a pause on the article. If the article was not going to be indefinitely postponed, then the recommendation would be to not approve it just because of that uncertainty with the cost, which would then have an impact on the taxpayers.
Fair enough, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Richard Donovan, Pondview Drive. I have a question in regard to the cost associated with this article. My understanding, I went to the town offices recently to ask about the town taking our private road, and I had a discussion with the young lady at the office, and I understood that there is an assessment on the homeowners once the process is initiated and approved. But this article appears that the cost of improvement, the cost of repairing the roadway, is going to be borne by the town and not by the homeowners. I'd like some clarification on that difference. Why one road is taken with the betterments paid for by the town and the other betterments are assessed to the taxpayer.
These costs will be assessed to the property owners as a betterment. It's being expedited, which is why the Select Board are the ones who made the motion, but this was a petition article. It was expedited so that it can be done in conjunction with Phase 1A of the sewer project. But this cost, the $120,000 and change, will be paid by the property owners.
But the wording of the article does not indicate that.
It does.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misread it. It does indicate borne by the taxpayer, by the...
It will be a betterment to the, it'll be a betterment to the property owners on Christopher Lane.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Collins.
just a friendly reminder to everyone before you leave, please don't forget to leave your clickers with us. Thank you.
Let me reiterate that. As you leave, leave your clicker behind. There will be nice, friendly folks to collect them, and angry people if you take it with you. Don't do that. All right. Further discussion on this article? Hearing none, let's try a voice vote. This requires a 2/3 vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. I declare a 2/3 vote was met. It need not be unanimous. Moving on to Article number 33, which is by petition. Mr. Homer, I believe.
Homer, in the Hoyden Road, I move to indefinitely postpone Article 33.
Second.
Recommendation? Probably don't need it on indefinite postponement, do we?
No.
Any discussion on indefinite postponement? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. The motion does not carry. It is indefinitely postponed. And that concludes our annual town meeting for this spring. Thank you all. Please leave your clickers behind and don't forget to vote on the 2 questions on the ballot on Saturday, May 11th.